Legends are often dismissed as mere stories, tales told around fires to entertain, scare, or teach a lesson. Dragons, sea serpents, giants, and other mythical beings are usually thought of as fiction, figments of imagination shaped by fear and superstition. But what if some of these legendary creatures weren't entirely imaginary? What if, hidden beneath the layers of myth, there was physical evidence that these monsters or creatures like them actually existed? Take the dragon, for example. Across cultures, dragons appear in myths, from the fire-breathing beasts of Europe to the serpentine sky dragons of Asia. For centuries, these creatures were considered entirely fictional, but archaeologists studying ancient China discovered massive fossilized bones of prehistoric reptiles, which some scholars believe inspired these myths. The fossils were enormous, far larger than any modern reptile, and their discovery likely led early humans to imagine dragons with wings, claws, and the power to breathe fire. While fire breathing may be fantasy, the bones themselves were physical evidence that creatures resembling dragons once walked the earth. The Komodo Dragon is another example where legend and reality intersect. Indigenous folklore in Indonesia spoke of a massive lizard capable of killing humans, describing its serrated teeth, venomous bite, and enormous size. Western scientists initially dismissed these accounts as exaggeration. But when the Komodo dragon was formally documented in the early 20th century, the locals' warnings proved accurate. These dragons can grow up to 10 feet long, deliver venom through their bites, and hunt with terrifying efficiency. Legends preserved knowledge of a real predator, a creature humans once feared and respected. Sea serpents, long the bane of sailors' tales, may also have a basis in reality. Accounts from sailors across Europe and Asia described enormous undulating creatures dragging ships under the waves. For centuries, these were dismissed as hallucinations or tall tales. Then, deep-sea exploration revealed the oarfish, a ribbon-like creature growing up to 36 feet long. Rarely seen at the surface, its shimmering, sinuous body and undulating motion could easily have inspired the legendary sea serpents reported by terrified sailors. In this case, myth was an interpretation of a real, tangible creature, providing physical evidence that a legend may have been rooted in truth. In North America, stories of giant horned serpents or thunderbirds have circulated for centuries. Native American folklore often depicted massive birds or snake-like creatures capable of devastating villages or storms. While considered purely mythical, archaeological discoveries tell a different story. Fossils of enormous birds, some with wingspans exceeding 20 feet, have been found, as well as giant serpent fossils. These creatures were very real during prehistoric times, and the stories passed down through generations preserved knowledge of them long after they disappeared from the landscape. Even dragons in European myths may have a more concrete origin than commonly thought. Fossils of dinosaurs, particularly large theropods and sauropods, were often misinterpreted as evidence of dragons. The skeletal remains, discovered by early humans without the framework of modern paleontology, seemed monstrous. Teeth, claws, and massive vertebrae were reconstructed in the imagination as living beasts. When medieval Europeans encountered these bones, the myths of dragons were reinforced. In essence, fossils left behind by ancient creatures provided physical evidence for legends that shaped culture for centuries. Some legendary creatures left evidence in unexpected places. The unicorn, for instance, long thought to be a symbol of purity and fantasy, may have been inspired by real animals. In Central Asia, explorers discovered fossils of the Elasmotherium, a giant prehistoric rhinoceros with a single large horn. Standing over 6 feet tall at the shoulder and measuring up to 15 feet long, this creature could easily have inspired tales of a majestic horned beast. Though extinct, its bones preserved in the earth offer tangible proof that legends of unicorn-like creatures were rooted in reality. The waters hold their own examples of legend meets reality. The kraken, a legendary sea monster said to drag ships into the depths, was long considered fantasy. Yet giant squid specimens, occasionally washed ashore or captured in deep-sea photography, show that enormous tentacled creatures exist and can grow over 40 feet long. Sailors encountering these rare animals would have seen monsters in the water, feeding stories of krakens that terrified generations. Fossilized remains, modern captures, and reports from the deep provide physical evidence linking legend with reality. In South America, the legend of the Mapinguari, a giant, shaggy, one-eyed creature said to roam the Amazon, may also have roots in real animals. Eyewitness accounts describe it as massive, strong, and terrifying. While some suggest these stories are purely mythical, researchers have uncovered remains of prehistoric giant sloths, some as large as small cars. Early humans could have encountered these enormous creatures, preserving their memory through oral tradition, giving rise to the legendary Mapinguari. Bones, teeth, and other fossils are physical evidence connecting myth to reality. In Africa, tales of enormous crocodiles or river monsters that could drag humans underwater were once dismissed as folklore. Yet the Nile crocodile, growing over 20 feet long and weighing up to 2,000 pounds, matches descriptions found in local myths. Evidence from bones and preserved specimens shows that humans have shared rivers and lakes with these predators for thousands of years. Ancient warnings about monsters in the water were not exaggeration, they were a survival guide. Even the Yeti or abominable snowman may have a kernel of reality preserved in legend. Footprints, hair samples, and skeletal remains discovered in the Himalayas suggest that an unknown primate or human relative may have existed or may still exist in remote areas. For centuries, travelers described encounters with a towering fur-covered creature, dismissed as myth. Yet physical evidence, including hair and bone fragments, challenges skepticism and suggests that legend may have been observing a real, albeit elusive, animal. In Europe, stories of sea monsters along coastal regions often included sightings of massive, whale-like creatures or giant octopuses. Early mariners and explorers drew these creatures on maps, labeling them as dangerous. While exaggerated, some of these reports correspond with remains of giant squid or prehistoric whales. Skeletons found on beaches may have inspired these tales, leaving behind physical proof that legendary creatures were based on animals that once roamed or still roam the seas. Even smaller animals influenced legends. The armadillo-like glyptodont, a prehistoric creature with a massive shell, may have inspired myths of armored beasts or miniature dragons. Fossils of these creatures found in South America were likely interpreted by early humans as evidence of living monsters. Legends of monstrous armored animals were not random. They were based on creatures humans had physically encountered, providing a tangible link between myth and reality. Some evidence is not fossilized, but preserved in the environment. The stellar sea cow, described by Russian explorers in the 18th century, was thought to be a creature of folklore until they documented it firsthand. This massive, slow-moving herbivore could reach up to 30 feet in length. Its size and strange behavior confirmed that the legends passed down by indigenous peoples were accurate. Though it was hunted to extinction within 27 years of discovery, the physical evidence of bones and reports cemented its place as a creature bridging myth and reality. Even dragons may have survived longer than we realize. Some legends describe encounters with dragons or dragon-like serpents in remote parts of Asia, Africa, and Europe. Fossil evidence of large monitor lizard, crocodiles, and pythons supports the idea that humans once coexisted with reptiles that inspired these terrifying stories. Legends often described fiery breath or venomous bites. Exaggerations, perhaps, but the physical reality of enormous reptiles gave rise to these imaginative elements. And then there are the giant penguins of prehistoric Antarctica. Standing up to 6 feet tall, these flightless birds were discovered through fossilized skeletons. For centuries, myths told of enormous, dangerous birds inhabiting polar regions. While humans may never have seen them alive, the remains provide physical proof that these legends were grounded in fact. What seems fantastical may have existed, or could still exist, in ways that defy our imagination. Physical evidence of legendary creatures doesn't always mean the animals survive today, but it shows that humans observed real-life phenomena and encoded them in myth. From dragon-like reptiles to massive sea serpents, from unicorn-inspired rhinoceroses to one-eyed Amazonian giants, legends often preserve accurate observations of creatures long extinct or rarely seen. Fossils, bones, skeletons, and eyewitness accounts create a bridge between fantasy and reality. And perhaps the most astonishing part, the oceans, jungles, mountains, and frozen regions of our planet remain largely unexplored. For every legendary creature with physical evidence we've found, there may be dozens more still lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered, and perhaps inspiring new legends for generations to come. Because sometimes, the monsters of myth were never myths at all. They were real, and the bones, fossils, and traces they left behind are proof that nature is far stranger and more incredible than we ever imagined.